Mary had a little lamb.
The fourth, we believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
The moment this terrible virus reached our shores, each of you has worked relentlessly to get the vital supplies to our healthcare warriors. And they are warriors, aren't they, when you see them going into those hospitals and they're putting the stuff that you deliver, but they're wrapping themselves and the doors are opening and they're going through the doors and they're not even ready to go through those doors. They probably shouldn't. But they can't get there fast enough, and they're running into death just like soldiers run into bullets. In a true sense, I see that with the doctors and the nurses and so many of the people that go into those hospitals. It's incredible to see. It's a beautiful thing to see, but...
Really? What does Donald Trump know about running into bullets in the first place? Was it something he saw in a movie while he was attending his military-themed reform school? Or was it something he saw in a movie after he was relieved of the obligation to serve in the Vietnam War? Are doctors warriors dodging bullets and they probably shouldn't go into... So here you have the commander-in-chief expecting everyone else to do the dying for him, just like he did when he was diagnosed by a healthcare worker with bone spurs and gave him a free pass out of the Vietnam War service that he was drafted to do. Listen, I can't say it any better than this ER doctor. This is Donald Trump's, view of the world. Everyone else is, does the fighting. Everyone else does the dying. Everyone, for me, you sacrifice your life for me. For me. And that is why I say that his supporters at this point are a freaking death cult, okay? They are. There's no question. Either that or they're just so poorly educated or they're so highly propagandized by their choices in viewing that there's no hope for them until they get sick. I saw a Twitter chain, I'm not going to play it for you. There's a woman who was protesting for like 20 minutes. It's a long-ass video. Some woman just protesting in a Trader Joe's. Refused to wear a mask. Refused to do it. Just got diagnosed with COVID. Just got diagnosed. I mean, these are some strange dudes and women, okay? This is ER Dr. Robert Davidson responding to Donald Trump. The comparison that doctors, nurses, physicians, assistants, clerical workers who have to go into patients' rooms for the low bargain basement price of less than $15 an hour to collect insurance information while they don't even have insurance. I mean, it's just so bizarre. Anyway, this is Dr. Robert Davidson responding directly to the president's claim that our doctors and healers are somehow, in his mind, warriors in war.
President Trump, I saw these comments when you were in Pennsylvania today, and I just have to respond. I am an emergency doctor, and when you talk about healthcare workers running into death, you absolutely disparage what we do, and it is a slap into the face to the work that we are doing across this country, trying to help people, despite your failures. You still have not provided us with the tools we need to adequately control this virus, to control this pandemic. We are not doing enough tests in this country, and you know it, and your staff knows it, and the experts around you know it, and they tell you, and still you continue to peddle these lies that we are doing enough tests. This virus is out of control in this country, and because of that, we need more tests. We need to be able to test, trace, and isolate so we can finally stomp this out and safely open this country again. And despite the hard work of people like Governor Whitmer and Governor Cuomo and Governor Newsom, you are continuing to peddle this narrative that people should just go out and get back to business. Meanwhile, in your White House, you can't even control this virus.
Hello.
And your staff are being tested daily. And some of your staff are now at home doing quarantine because they've been exposed. And that is with the testing. Imagine what the rest of us are doing out here, flying blind.
Right.
And this virus is just running rampant. All the while, you're encouraging people to gather and to protest. You're tweeting liberate to Michigan and other states. And we're getting hot spots as a result of those, quote, liberation movements that you are inspiring. We need your help. If you want to be a wartime president and you want to call us warriors, give us what we need. Give us the tests we need so we can control this virus and we can get past this as a country. Please stop dividing us. Try to unite us just for a change. Thanks.
You're welcome. It's just, he needs to be heard. Every ER doctor, every clerical worker who goes into a COVID patient's room to collect their insurance information. Every nurse's aide, every janitor that cleans inside of a healthcare facility, whether it's the VA or a hospital in Elmhurst, Queens. Everyone is out there risking their lives except for the president who stands on a stage and says, oh, they're like warriors running into bullets. Wow. And they probably shouldn't even be doing it. Only you would think that live and let die is the Hippocratic oath. No, yours is the hypocrisy oath. You know there aren't sufficient supplies. You knew there weren't sufficient masks. You knew there wasn't sufficient PPE for nurses and doctors who needlessly died in the first 4 months of this pandemic. He knows all this. And then after that, to appealing to this unbelievably low information voter, he actually says this. Okay, this is so unbelievable. This is just the height of stupidity, okay? But this does show you that what we were saying during the first 4 months of this pandemic is absolutely 100% correct. And that is this. They did not want to do testing at the upper crusty echelons of this administration, including Jared Kushner, Donald Trump, Azar, all these people, because they knew the results would spook the entire economy. Now, to this minute, we've only tested 3% of the United States, right? We've only tested about 3%. Maybe we've done 10 million tests as of today. We need to do 40 or 50 million tests a month in order to reopen smartly, wisely, carefully, protected, right? But we've done 10 million tests since the beginning of this pandemic total, which is what, 3% of the population, a little less than 3% of the population, which means if you do the math, 45 million Americans probably have COVID. And here's what he says.
Don't forget, we have more cases than anybody in the world. But why? Because we do more testing. When you test, you have a case. When you test, you find something is wrong with people. If we didn't do any testing, we would have very few cases.
Okay, that's Trump in a nutshell. Emphasis on the nut. So here's his theory of pandemic preparedness. If I close my eyes, I'm invisible. God help us. No testing, no cases. It's that simple, right? Right. His mind literally functions at the level of an 18-month-old, okay? According to Trump, if you don't know about danger, if you're not on the wall looking for incoming, then there is no danger, there is no incoming. How would you like to serve in a foxhole next to this man? How would you like that? That's why I keep telling you, this is what the military teaches you. And this is why when you come out, you are a progressive, you are a liberal. Why? Because you're only as good as the weakest among you. The weakest person can get you killed. And the weakest person is the president of the United States of America. That is the sad Friday news. Because, listen, by his logic, if I pretend that Trump isn't the president, then he's not. Right? This is just like the protesters that instead of protesting for guaranteed wages and sick leave, they're protesting to risk their lives for this imbecile. Oh my God.
all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Don't forget, we have more cases than anybody in the world. But why? Because we do more testing. When you test, you have a case. When you test, you find something is wrong with people. If we didn't do any testing, we would have very few cases. They don't want to write that. It's common sense. So we test much more, many, many times. South Korea, you hear about? I spoke with the president of South Korea, spoke with many different presidents, prime ministers. They can't believe what we've been able to do on testing. They can't believe what we've been able to do on ventilators. We're sending them ventilators. Other countries, Italy, Spain, other countries, France is having tremendous problems. We're helping them with ventilators.
Sarah Cooper, everybody. Oh! She's so freaking good. I don't know how to do that. I don't even know, I don't even have TikTok on my phone. I just scroll through it and look for the good stuff, is what I do. I really should learn how to do it because apparently you can edit video on there, and that's my thing. That's what I like to do. But anyway, at this point, the President of the United States, he's going to pass out Lysol and juice boxes and send every kid back to school. This is where we are. This is what we're doing here because Trump's philosophy is everyone else does the dying for me. It's all about me. What can I do to protect me and the markets and my markets? And somebody wrote me an email yesterday and said, why would they want everybody to stay closed if they care about the economy? And I had to point out they don't care about the economy. They care about the stock market. Completely and wholly different thing, as you now know. We're in this country probably looking at 24-25% unemployment, and the market is okay. It's doing okay. They live on a different planet, the market, than people who work in a hourly economy do. I mean, and you know what? I just got to say, when you listen to the president, when this is all said and done, and you find out that this was all an elaborate prank, don't call me for sympathy if you don't get it now, right now, if you don't understand it. I mean, this is what he's doing. And today, I didn't even pull anything from this press conference today, but I will tell you, he was out in the Rose Garden, everyone around him trying to send an SOS. SOS, America, SOS. Fauci and Birx and all of them wearing masks. Donald Trump, no mask, because he's tested every 5 minutes with the Abbott quick test, which he says he has faith in, except that he said today, and if you don't think the result is right, you could do another test. You could do a backup test. How many of us can do a test, let alone a backup test? I mean, the nerve of this man is endless. We should all die for him. But there was honking going on. My truckers were out there honking their horns in front of the White House today. They were protesting. They need help. They need financial help. Their miles, which is how they get paid by the mile, the small truckers, have been cut because the economy is closed, and they need government help. They need a subsidy. They need some sort of, a guarantee for income. And they were honking and protesting. And Trump stood on that stage today and told America that the truckers were his people and that they were out there to show their love for him. And that's why the honking was so loud that the reporters couldn't even be heard asking him questions. I mean, and he's like, you have to take off your mask because I can't hear you because the truckers are honking their love for me. The truckers were protesting you. Everything's got to be a 180 in this man's world. Everything's got to be for him, even if it's against his policies, even if it's I cannot even believe it. I'm just like, but remember, everybody, if you don't see the danger, then there isn't any. If you cover your eyes, you're invisible. So let's pretend Trump isn't president, and then he won't be. And then we can prosecute him and watch him die of COVID in jail. Oh, my God. Oh, and that reminds me, Biden was asked a very important question. I don't know if you saw this last night or not, but he was on MSNBC. He was on The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell last night with Stacey Abrams. It was very telling, and it's a trial balloon, okay? It is, because Stacey Abrams is the absolute expert on voter fraud in this country, which exists on so many levels. Voter suppression, ballot harvesting, which is going out and collecting absentee ballots, shaking people down to give their absentee ballots to the collectors. That is what happened and led to Brian Kemp's being the governor of Georgia, right? Stacey Abrams is a voter fraud expert. She was on last night talking about voter fraud, but with Joe Biden. And Joe Biden was asked a very key question. Thank you to this gentleman who actually zoomed in and asked this question. This was whether or not a Biden administration would pardon a Donald Trump.
Would you be willing to commit to not pulling a President Ford and giving Donald Trump a pardon under the pretense of healing the nation? In other words, are you willing to commit to the American ideal that no one is above the law?
Good for you.
Absolutely, yes. I commit.
And this is helping us get in all the more questions. So that's a commitment. Mr. Vice President, you're saying that wherever the investigative trail might lead, whether that be an investigative trail pursued by the Justice Department against Trump officials, Trump associates, administration officials, whether those are congressional investigations, that's hands off for you. You're not going to say, let's just let bygones be bygones.
It's hands off completely. Look. The Attorney General of the United States is not the president's lawyer. It's the people's lawyer. Mm-hmm. And you remember when you were there with Pat Moynihan, we never saw anything like the prostitution of that office like we see it today. Ooh. It is not something the president is entitled to do, to direct either a prosecution and or decide to drop a case. That is not the president's role, responsibility, and it's a dereliction of his duty and the dereliction of the duty of the, you had whether 2000 was it, or former attorneys general and or people who worked in the office said the president attorney general should resign. It's what's going on is an absolute travesty, a travesty of justice. That will not happen, I guarantee you.
We will keep that clip. We will keep that clip because that was very important, and it could be whittled down to just the first 3 seconds. The questioner, will you, a la President Ford, say, in the name of healing this nation, pardon a criminal president? And he said, you have my commitment, I will not. So let's keep that clip around. We can revisit, sometime in 2021. And see whether or not there's any sort of flipping or flopping or, any sort of hedging, or because that was a great thing to get on tape. This man, as you know, must die in prison for a number of crimes. Everything from what we suspect is going to be massive tax fraud to violating the Emoluments Clause, meaning enriching himself as President of the United States, to negligent homicide.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. I'm just trying to get by on the sidewalk, that's all.
Well, you shouldn't be here. You're fake news. You stopped airing the Trump briefings and you keep airing Cuomo briefings. Go home, you fake news. Go home.
You're destroying something in Long Island. You are the enemy of the people. You are the enemy.
We all know it. You are fake news. We know about your liberal agenda. We know you want to keep your job. We get it. You're not getting advertiser dollars in right now.
You're not going to answer, so you're just going to go live.
Yes, I am getting a paycheck.
I'm very happy, but other people are not getting paychecks, and they're not getting.
You used to be a good channel at one time. I don't know what happened to you.
Wow, what's that outfit?
You're a hack.
You're supposed to be unbiased. You're not unbiased. You let so much crap fly on your Facebook page. It's disgusting. You're disgusting.
Oh Oh my God, that hostility toward the media is completely part of Trump's campaign. You know that, right? I mean, this is so unbelievable. And instead of people protesting and saying, there's no money coming in, we need money coming in. We need a bill that will give us guaranteed income. They want to be like Sweden because Sweden has guaranteed income and, they haven't had to suffer as much as we have because they have guaranteed income. They have paid sick leave. They have all these things that we don't have. They don't, they hate Sweden, but now they love Sweden because Sweden is, not locked down as much as we are because they have testing available and they have all kinds of precautions in place and, whatever. So, but now all of a sudden, instead of going out there and protesting, just test us all. Just test us all. Let's figure out who needs to isolate, who needs to go home, and get us sick leave and get us sick pay and give us all health care so that we can afford to be sick, right? And do something about that. Instead, they're out there supporting a man whose entire approach to this is, if I don't test you, then I don't see the cases. And if I don't see the cases, then there aren't any cases, even though 87,000 Americans plus have died. What are you going to do about the death? So instead of going out there and protesting for things that would make it possible for us to know how to reopen successfully, like sick leave and sick pay and insurance and guaranteed income, so that you could live. They're out there protesting the virus. The virus. The Michigan legislature had to close because they were bringing weapons to the to the Capitol in Michigan. They were bringing everything from one guy got arrested with an axe. So you had the guys with the semi-automatics, they were fine, but an axe, well, there is no National Axe Association, a lobby for you, so they did take his axe away, but not the semi-automatics. No, that's fine. And guys are running around with rocket launchers now, which is, also, your right to self-protect. I don't know against from what. But it's incredible. They're going to, rocket launch against I don't know, the droplets, we're going to launch. But it's just so sad because here you have Kamala Harris, you got Bernie Sanders, you got Ed Markey. They have a bill. And their bill would require this government of ours to cut checks to each and every American household for $2,000 a month every month that we need to stay indoors. $2,000 a month during the coronavirus crisis, okay? It would go to every American making up to $120,000 a year, and it would be also $2,000 for each child up to 3 children. So if you are a couple, that would be $4,000, plus if you had 3 kids, $6,000 right on top of it. $10,000 a month. I think people would be okay with staying home until we came up with a vaccine or until we came up with a therapeutic, a treatment, something, but instead you have people out there that think it is literally their civil right to go out and put their germs out all over the workplace. They think it's okay to serve food to people in the workplace. They think it's so here's a simple question for you, okay, for you people who think that somehow a pandemic or a health crisis doesn't allow for your departments of health to make a call, like in Wisconsin, okay? I was reading the dissent in that Wisconsin case, and you know what? They had to twist themselves into a pretzel, these freaks of nature on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, these 4 justices, in order to make some sort of an argument about why the Department of Health in Wisconsin isn't allowed to make a rule that is protecting public health. Of course they are. That has been the law in this country since 1879. In the 1918 flu pandemic, Wisconsin issued a stay-at-home order, 1918, and every single county, every single locality in Wisconsin did it. And it saved Wisconsin from the fate of a place like Pennsylvania, where they had a parade and millions of people in a second wave of that flu died. Anyway, it dawned on me that this was the Supreme Court that ordered in-person voting during the pandemic because the justice that was on the ballot, Daniel Kelly, was endorsed by Donald Trump, and they ruled that you had to do in-person voting in Wisconsin while they were very busy taking the polling place number down from 150 to like 3. And so I was reading the dissent in this case today before the show, and obviously they have used litigation instead of legislation in order to achieve a goal the Republicans did in that state that is so in violation of public health safety standards that have been observed in this country since its inception, right? So here's my question for you. All you civil, libertarians and all you people, my rights are just as important as you're dying. Really? Okay. Can I now drive drunk? Can I? Yes, I will endanger you, and maybe you have a baby on board, and maybe you, had a thought in your mind that you'd like to live on a Friday night. But I feel like going to the bar, and I feel like leaving the bar now after, 14 shots of, bottom shelf tequila and a couple of beers as a back. And I feel like driving drunk. I feel like I need to go, and it's my choice. Can I do that now? See what I mean? We do have rules for the sake of public safety. Here's another one for you. I'm a smoker, and you know how badly I've been treated? Secondhand smoke, it's a danger to you. Can I now smoke in a daycare center? Can I do that now, please? Because, my civil liberties are more important than your children's lungs. Can I do that?
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
If we don't do better on testing, on contact tracing, and on social distancing, will deaths from coronavirus necessarily increase?
Of course. If you do not do an adequate response, we will have the deleterious consequence of more infections and more deaths. And that's the reason why you quoted me, Senator, quite correctly in everything you said. And I will stand by that. If we do not respond in an adequate way when the fall comes, given that it is without a doubt that there will be infections that will be in the community, then we run the risk of having a resurgence. I would hope by that point in time, in the fall, that we have more than enough to respond adequately. But if we don't, there will be problems.
I appreciate your hope.
Yeah. If we don't social distance, if we don't wear a mask, if we don't wear gloves, if we don't, do take this here. You're going to see a lot of death. You're going to see a lot of death is what it is. And, we could solve all this if we had real testing, if we knew who was carrying and who. But no, it's your civil liberty. You get to go to a bar and you get to, be 2-3 deep at the bar, and you get to, put your droplets all over the place, and then, go out and drive drunk because, your right to be free, right? Your right to be free, freedom, right? You could bring a rocket launcher now into, a freaking church if you want. You could bring a pipe bomb into a doggy daycare because you're afraid, a dog might attack you. You need a rocket launcher. Can I burn down my own house now because I'm done paying the mortgage? I don't know. What else, do we have laws that prevent? Can I yell fire in a crowded theater? Can I? Because even though people might get trampled, can I do that now? Because my civil liberties, But they won't let me have an abortion. I'm having one right now. I'm doing it right now because my civil liberties, I can have an abortion. I could do it right now. I could do it on the, I mean, it's just so, I can't even use a certain word because there are laws in place that keep me from swearing on public airwaves. I can't say certain words. People don't understand what in the world a public health emergency entitles the public health authorities to do. So for you, Wisconsin, this is the sad truth. You had this Justice, Dan Kelly, who Donald Trump wanted to be on the Supreme Court again, but you elect your judges there, right? And so he said, oh no, Wisconsin can't vote by mail. You got to do in-person voting, and I'm on the ballot. And people said, okay, the word that I can't say, you, Dan Kelly, we're going to vote for Jill Kafofsky. And they did. But the problem is Dan Kelly's term isn't over until July. So Dan Kelly turned himself into a pretzel. I mean, more positions than are in the Kama Sutra, more positions than you've seen in a wild, drunk game of Twister, in order to condemn the they always talk about precedent, stare decisis, stare decisis precedent. In Wisconsin, going as far back as 1918, during the Spanish flu pandemic, the health department was allowed to order shelter-in-place, stay-at-home orders. It has never, ever, ever been contested. It is the law in Wisconsin. You don't need the legislature. It is something that you can do. And they freaking decided, I lost, Dan Kelly, I lost, and now I'm going to be a spiteful little bitch. Don't ask me why you could say that word, because you can't. And that we are in, retribution politics stuffed inside a pandemic, wrapped inside of a lunatic presidency. I mean, did anybody think it would get this bad? Matt in California.
Yeah, hey Randy. When you mentioned the whole thing about getting out of the military and realizing that, becoming more liberal and understanding that the meekest among us is, the person that will bring us down. It totally just went, oh crap, you're right.
I know I'm right, because you served, I served, and that is basically everything that you're they break you down and build you up. And what do they build you up into? A freaking progressive liberal. Why? Because the weakest among you will get you killed. The person who says, okay, I'm on guard right now, but I didn't see the incoming, and we all get blown up. That person needs to be fixed before we are deployed.
I remember those guys. I remember
them too. I do too. I used to drag this one girl. Okay, we used to have to do 5 miles in combat boots with shin splints. You know the drill, right? And she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. And I used to have to drag her. But her name was Pina. And if she's listening, hi, I still remember you and I still love you. I used to have to drag her by her shirt collar because if she couldn't do the 5 miles, everyone got punished.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And they do that so that you will reach down and help the person who is the weakest among you to rise up to the occasion so that they don't create an impediment to your safety, to your survival, and to your mission.
Right. And don't you think it makes us so much less selfish of a human being?
Oh my God! And they love the troops. They love us, right? We're all and the vet.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we signed a piece of paper. It's called GI. GI means government issue. We signed a piece of paper signing away all of our civil rights. Because that's what it takes to sacrifice for the greater good. And these idiot protesters will not get that message.
No. Well, with their modern sporting rifles that they're carrying.
What was the dealio with the guy with the axe? And how is it possible in this here country that you could bring a semi-automatic weapon into the Capitol in Michigan, but you can't bring an axe? I guess they don't have a lobbyist. They need a lobbyist. We need to start the National Axe Association.
Well, and maybe the axe needed a holster. Maybe that's why he got in trouble. Have a good weekend, Randy.
Thank
I love you.
I love you more. Thank you. Carolyn in California.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello. I just wanted to add my bit to the Carnage Chronicles. I am really concerned about the future, the state of our education, which was horrific, and the future of our education.
It may be better. It may be better that everybody is separated and the teachers are online. I mean, schooling is still occurring, These online teachers just move me. They are amazing humans. But it may be better. I mean, you don't have, kids throwing spitballs and pulling hair, and you don't have, like a raucous classroom.
I agreed. I agree with that, Randy. But here is my concern. Cuomo is working with billionaires to put everything online, but I'll just stick to the education. And when he was expressing this, as he was talking to the ex-head of Google, Eric Schmidt, he said, yeah, and why do we need all these physical buildings with all this technology we have? Well, here's a thought. I grew up in the ghettos of Brooklyn. And education was not good back then, but it got me out of the ghetto. But my nephews, who haven't quite pulled out yet, the conditions were horrific. They haven't gotten any better. And so if we're going to have this online teaching, how are the poor kids going to afford laptops, internet?
Well,
especially
if you repurpose the money from buildings with internet to everybody has internet, there you go.
But he's also going to cut the education budget. Newsom today said he's cutting
only because they can't pass a bill that has relief money for the coronavirus outlays to make up the difference. Only because today Nancy Pelosi they're going to vote in the House today on another $3 trillion. This includes relief for the cities and states that have been hit really hard to make up for the outlays, the shortfalls because of all the stuff that they've had to do to meet the moment. So that's why you're talking about cutting firefighters and police officers and school teachers and all public services if you don't get this relief package. And you know what the big holdup is in the relief package? You know why Mitch McConnell won't?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think it is?
Yeah. Oh, no. Mitch McConnell said, plus Trump said, dead on arrival.
Why?
Mitch McConnell and Trump, dead on arrival.
I do. Because he wants liability exemptions for big business. He wants, like the meat packers and, all big grocery store workers who are, hourly workers who barely make enough to survive. He wants these companies to do whatever they want and have no liability.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
What I'm proud of is what we are doing. And the fact is that in all four of the bills that have passed before, they've all been bipartisan. And we've all, in our caucus, have agreed that everything is coronavirus-centric and also in a timely way that relates to the virus. It's too deadly to our lives, to our livelihood, to our democracy for us to use it for any other purpose. So when the money for state and local is to allay the cost of the, defray the cost of the outlays they've made for coronavirus and the revenue lost because of the coronavirus. Testing, with three pillars. Honor our heroes by supporting our state and local entities so that they don't lose their jobs. These heroes don't lose their jobs. Open up government by testing, tracing, treatment, etc. And the third is putting money in the pockets of the American people.
So that's what the House, the Democratic House, is trying to advance today. They're going to vote today on another $3 trillion. This would include money for cities and states so that they could pay public hospital workers. They could pay the sanitation workers. They could pay the police officers. The Blue Lives Matter and all. Except no, not really. Here's Mitch McConnell telling you why the Republican Party is against helping the American people in a national pandemic, which is part of a global pandemic. And just before I play what Mitch McConnell thinks would solve your problem, let me just tell you that Wuhan in China has had a resurgence in asymptomatic COVID cases, meaning people with no symptoms seem to be passing COVID to other people. And so this week, Wuhan, China, is going to test all 11 million people in Wuhan. Throughout this entire February, March, April, May, we have managed to cobble together about 9 million tests, about 3% of our population, a little less than that. And if the numbers are, numbers being what they are, hard to argue with a mathematician, that means 45 million Americans probably have COVID, okay? And we're doing nothing. And his solution is to open the economy and give businesses a liability exemption so that they can do whatever they want and their employees can be ordered back into work. And this is happening so that if you say, no, I'm not going back to work. I work in a meatpacking facility. I work in a poultry processing plant. I work in a nursing home. I work in a place where I have to take the subway and, there's an outbreak, mass transit, or I'm a mass transit worker or whatever. You don't get your unemployment. You don't get it. It makes corporations legally bulletproof. And that is what Mitch McConnell thinks would solve the problem.
Brett, I think the president and Senate Republican majorities will be on the same page when we get to the point where we need to do another bill. And our red line is going to be liability protections for those who are brave enough to begin to open up the economy again in the wake of the trial lawyers who are descending already on hospitals and doctors and businesses. As of about a week and a half ago, 771 lawsuits had already been filed. So we're working on a narrowly crafted protection from liability for things directly related to the coronavirus, and that will have to be a part of any package, because if we're really going to get the economy up and going again, people have to be brave enough to begin to engage in economic activity. How about the presidents of universities? Are they willing to open up for the fall? Or are we going to have another period of time where not only K through 12 students, but potentially college students are still at home? All of those questions need to be answered by the fall. Liability protection will help provide the answer.
Oh, my God. Yeah. So the Amazon workers who, find an outbreak in their warehouse, or the Walmart worker that finds an outbreak in their store or whatever. So we need to give those companies liability. We need to make them bulletproof from any claim you might have that they skipped over, giving you a mask or gloves, or requiring other employees out of respect for you, wear a mask. Okay. This is so, they never fail to amaze me. So here you have ordinary people. You have people who are, upset, right? Like they want to go to a bar and they want to do this and they want to go to work but the only way that can happen is if Mitch McConnell gets his way and those businesses become bulletproof from any lawsuit you might be able to bring once that company opens up but refuses to provide masks or gloves or sanitation or a place for you to wash your hands or hand sanitizer or whatever. They want safe harbor from simple negligence claims. He thinks that is the answer. Only a Republican would go there. Only a freaking Republican who has a line of lobbyists in his office would even suggest that, okay? Now, Kamala Harris was talking about her plan.
But the reality is the workers have a right to be safe in the workplace. Mm-hmm. Because what's their risk let's talk about relative risk. The risk for the workers is going back to work might kill them.
Yeah, hello.
That they may contract this virus, that they may spread it to their families. So my point is that the workers have a right to expect that when they go to work, they will be provided with everything that makes for a safe workplace. And that includes whatever is required in terms of the standards for social distancing, masks, you name it. The other piece of it in terms of worker safety and public health has to be about saying we got to fight for paid sick leave, which they have been fighting against. We've been trying to get it in there, and they're fighting against it. In terms of what we need to fight against that they're trying to do, this whole liability issue is one that really everybody should pay attention to, because it sounds reasonable in terms of we want the businesses to be able to open up at some point. But at the same time, let's be clear that should not be at the expense of workers' safety.
And let me tell you something. In general, the American people agree with Kamala. They don't agree with Mitch McConnell, the Grim Reaper, who loves death. He just loves it. There was a poll that was done by the Trial Lawyers Association, 64 to 36%. 64% of us voters oppose giving immunity to companies from lawsuits involving coronavirus infections in their workplaces. And that crosses all party lines, okay? 72% of Democrats oppose giving a bulletproof status to a company that just decides we don't need to, take care of that. It's just like the meat packers, right? Roll them, speed it up. So 72% of Democrats oppose giving guaranteed immunity. Independents, 64% oppose, and 56% of Republicans oppose giving immunity to companies. Yay! So you know what? This is like the background checks. 98% of America agreed that we should have background checks before you can own an Uzi, right? And bring it into a school. It won't get done because Mitch McConnell is the Senate Majority Leader. And this is just like this Wisconsin Daniel Kelly Supreme Court Justice. You got to get rid of these dudes. You have to vote them out. Now, kudos to Wisconsin. Dan Kelly, as of July, will not be on the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. But unless and until we get rid of Mitch McConnell, who, by the way, Rand Paul was trashing last night on Sean Hannity's show. I don't know exactly what that's about. But Mitch McConnell thinks our answer to 28 9/11s, which is the number of deaths we've had in this country in just like 8 weeks, is liability guarantees, immunity.
At RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
No state bailout. As a matter of fact, Washington, pay close attention. You spent enough money. No more spending. We don't need infrastructure. $3 trillion, $4 trillion in loans available. That's a lot of money. Let's see how it goes. And do your best to open the country safely. Learn from Florida, Texas, Georgia, and learn from the guys that were stocking the grocery store shelves where I lived that wore masks and gloves and they never got sick.
How does he know that? Just makes crap up and spews, right? This is a slumlord, Sean Hannity. This is a guy who has a lot of low-income rental units that he purchased all throughout Georgia. He's getting paid. I told you, Jared Kushner is very busy getting paid with his low-income, 6,000 low-income rental units, taking people to court during the pandemic, literally serving them. These are just disgusting human beings. No more money for you, New York. No more money. New York has paid like $116 billion into the federal treasury, more than it ever took out. And that money goes to the red states to support them. Oh my God. No more money. So you have the Democrats saying, we need to send $2,000 a month for each and every adult that lives in a household, and then another $2,000 a month for each and every kid up to 3 kids, for every household that makes $120,000 a year or less. during the coronavirus pandemic. That will never see the light of day. Nancy Pelosi's got a $3 trillion package, okay, that would give states and cities some relief. It also has billions of dollars for testing to help us open in a reasonable way. I mean, these false choices that the Republicans always serve up to you, either go to work in an unsafe work environment or die poor, just, starve to death. Really, I mean, they're false choices. They're always so ridiculous. They were like, Obamacare, it's going to have death panels. Grandma's going to die. They're going to pick and choose who gets to. And that's exactly what they're doing with Corona. That's exactly what they're doing. Oh, we don't care about grandma and nursing homes. They can die. You had the deputy deputy governor or whatever they call him, the second in command in Texas, sitting on TV saying, "I would die for this man. I would have," because there are some. He actually said there are more important things in life than living. Brilliant. H.L. Mencken's gonna, rise from the grave and go, "Okay, hats off to you. That was the best." I mean, it's so stupid. So they're sending people back to work with reduced hours and reduced pay in order to end the state's obligation to pay unemployment claims. At the same time, they're saying, and by the way, we want to give companies bulletproof status so that these employees, when they become sick, they have no claim. Because, that's going to incentivize companies to do the right thing for you. Jeez. Lori in California.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
My personal opinion is I think that Trump and McConnell just don't want to give us any more stimulus. They just want us all starving and freaked out and scared.
Yeah.
No, that's my personal opinion. I love your show, though, Randy.
Thank you. Joe on Long Island. Hello. Georgia, New York.
Hello, Randy. I was wondering, could you tell me what happened to John Bolton and John Bolton's book and why he wasn't subpoenaed?
Oh, so this is interesting, right? His book was supposed to come out, but the president won't clear it. They won't, the NSA won't give him permission to. So I told you to watch that book because if that book never came out, you know that our government is practicing censorship. So all these lunatics out there that are protesting not for better wages, not for testing, not for clean work environments, not for, $2,000 a month during the pandemic, for the duration so we can, rid our country of this scourge. No, they're out there protesting about their liberties and their life, and they get to drive drunk now, or they get to burn their own house down because they want. Meanwhile, right in front of their faces, there's censorship happening at the behest of Donald Trump, because Bolton's book is not the story that Trump once told about, the Russia interference.
So he had strong connections with the Russians himself, didn't he?
He what?
He had strong connections with the Russians.
Well, yeah, he would go over there and, talk about guns and stuff.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Paula, New Mexico.
Hey, Randy, we're in deep trouble here.
You think?
Yeah. The reason I called is actually exactly what you brought up about corporate immunity, and what we're about to see is immunity. In other words, the Supreme Court mulling over whether to release the tax returns. If they don't do that, we have a unitary executive. His back is covered, and he will steal the election again. The Supreme Court.
So this is what I keep saying to you. If the president of the United States is free to commit any crime while he's president that he wants, then why wouldn't previous presidents have made themselves president for life?
Yep.
So that's the natural end result of a Supreme Court ruling that a president is immune from any prosecution for any criminal activity while he's president. That's why that's how you get to dictatorship in this country. I don't think they'll rule that way, but if they did, that's where we would be.
I hope you're right, Randy, and I know you're watching it. Please keep us informed, because I think that is the real
I mean, they had no coherent argument at all. I mean, Secular was arguing that it's too much of a burden for the president to produce old tax returns that have already been filed. There's no burden at all. These are documents that sit in a file at Mazars. It's not even him that has to put these documents together. They're already together and they're already sitting there. There's no burden at all. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And then they said, well, the president is an entire branch of government, and so he should be immune from any prosecution. That would mean that anybody who was president of the United States could do anything they wanted in order to guarantee them a third term and a fourth term and a fifth term, because while they were president, they couldn't be prosecuted. That makes no sense to me.
Well, this is what worries me the most, and it's the Supreme Court is going to hand him that power. You watch. I mean,
no.
You're talking about reason, logic ruling the day. Look where we're at today.
No, it's bad. There's no question it's bad in this OLC opinion that we rely on for some stupid reason that says that, a president can't be prosecuted. It's not a law.
Yeah. Well, I love you, Randy. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't worry. I feel somewhat, I won't say completely confident, but somewhat confident that John Roberts, who will be the swing vote on, Clarence Thomas, come on. His wife runs a freaking super PAC. You think he believes in the separation of powers or not being, compromised while he makes, conflict of it? No. But Roberts, as corporate as he is, I can't see him doing this.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Whoops.
Clearly, the Obama administration did not leave to this administration any kind of game plan for something like this.
You said that the previous administration didn't leave a plan. They pushed back against that.
I was wrong. They did leave behind a plan, so I clearly made a mistake in that regard. As to whether or not the plan was followed and who's the critic and all the rest, I don't have any observation about that because I don't know enough about the details of that.
You're telling me they're not the swamp? You're telling me that. You're telling me that Mitch McConnell, the Grim Reaper who loves death and loves that name, he loves that nickname, who lied to the Fox News viewers that the Obama administration never left a pandemic plan, even if you parsed it all the way down to the nitty-gritty, on coronavirus, which it did. There was a specific coronavirus plan.
You were actually a part of this pandemic playbook force, if you will. You worked on the Ebola response. So tell us what is in this manual, and was the Trump administration briefed on it?
They were extensively briefed to the extent that they paid attention to these things during the transition. I mean, we really did everything we could to try and leave them in a position to be prepared for this. We left them the detailed playbook, which specifically cited novel coronaviruses as a tier 1 pathogen risk. We left them a dedicated team at the White House that was focused on preparing the world and the United States for exactly this kind of a major pandemic scenario. And even during the transition, there was an exercise, tabletop exercise for the incoming national security team that focused on a pandemic scenario. So, short of leaving a flashing neon sign in the Situation Room saying "Watch out for a pandemic," I'm not sure what more we could have done.
It's just so. This is amazing. This president really doesn't give two F's. Okay, your life means nothing to him. You understand that, right? Because here we have 28 9/11s as of today, right? 87,000 plus dead people. So that's like 28 times the death toll of 9/11. We have like a 9/11 in this country every day. We have more death in 8 weeks than we had in the entirety of 8 to 10 years of the Vietnam War. And while we're 1/5 of the world's population, we have 25% of the deaths in this world. We have 25% of all the casualties, of all the dead people. Because he's a great leader, you know. He's just so good at it. And he doesn't give two Fs. Couldn't care less. All he cares about is his re-election. That is what is on his mind. Even Dr. Fauci was asked, how much death is acceptable to you?
Well, you know, it's the balance of something that's a very difficult choice. Like, how many deaths and how much suffering are you willing to accept to get back to what you want to be some form of normality sooner rather than later? You know, it's something that people feel very differently about it. You know, myself, coming from the vantage point that I come and seeing the danger in it, I feel I have a moral obligation to give the kind of information that I'm giving. People are going to make their own choices. I cannot, nor anybody, force people under every circumstance to do what you think is best. The only thing that I can do, Chris, is to give the information based on evidence and based on experience. And that's what I've been doing right from the very beginning. And there are people that are going to be disagreeing with me, some of them rather violently in many respects, you know, telling me that I'm crazy, you know, fire Fauci, do this, do that.
Yeah.
That's part of the game. I'm just going to keep giving you the information that I feel is necessary to make the decisions that I think are prudent decisions.
People who think they're going to shake you up with their mouths don't know you very well. The idea that it happened this fast, are you surprised that after the country really did seem to get it, that we have to stay home, I know we don't want to do it, but it's working, that it snapped back this fast?
No, I'm not surprised. And the reason I'm not surprised, Chris, is because one thing this virus has that's really different from so many other viruses that we have experience with, it has a phenomenal capability and efficiency in spreading from person to person.
Great. All I could do is tell you how many deaths you're looking at, and then you can make your own decisions. Again, do we get to drive drunk now? Again, do I get to burn my own house down? It's my house. I own it. I just don't feel like, paying for it anymore. Or I don't feel like, paying the property tax anymore. I'm out. I'm just going to burn the sucker down. Can Colin Kaepernick kneel now because that is his personal choice? Can he kneel and still work for the NFL? I say he should have been. I mean, can I yell fire in a crowded theater? Because I'm in the mood to see a stampede. And I don't give two Fs about you. I feel I've been treated poorly because I am a cigarette smoker. I think pot smokers are treated better than I am. And so I'm going to smoke cigarettes in the daycare center now. And you can't stop me. What kind of freaking logic is this? So, like I said, this Wisconsin ruling, a lot of states are going to rely on it. And I got to tell you, it doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold water. No, it doesn't hold water. Positive traction. Because here's what it said. Rather than examine the plain language of Wisconsin Statute 252.02, the majority engages in analytical gymnastics to arrive at their desired conclusion. One only need examine the clear and plain statutory language to uncover what the majority attempts to obscure. Because the legislature has bestowed on the Department of Homeland Security Secretary explicit authority to issue orders such as the stay at home emergency order 28 without first going through the legislature, the majority's exercise fails. I dissent. Here's the history in Wisconsin and many other states because, we've had a country since about 1876, okay? The State Board of Health exercised its broad emergency powers during the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. In consultation with the governor, issued an order closing all public institutions in Wisconsin, including schools, theaters, movie picture houses, other placements, places of amusement and public gathering for an indefinite period of time. Nowhere except in Wisconsin was such an order issued statewide or in such a comprehensive fashion, and every local government in Wisconsin cooperated with the order immediately because compliance spelled the difference between life and death for hundreds, if not thousands, of Wisconsin citizens. This law existed since 1876.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
So as some of you guys might know, I'm a music teacher, and I found that one of the best ways that I can process the whole transition to online learning and teaching is to write a song. So I wrote a song. I'd like to share that with you guys now. Here we go. So as some of you guys might know, I'm a music teacher, and
that's my favorite COVID video of all of them, including Sarah Cooper. And there's another girl whose name I need to learn who does the Trump stuff too. The, shove a lightsaber. I mean, literally takes his words and says them, with him play. What a ridiculous situation. I mean, if people weren't dying at the rate of at least, 2,000 a day, who would believe this? If I had told you how bad this was going to get when he was sworn in. I mean, the carnage thing. Remember that? Remember his this carnage stops right here, right now. This American carnage. Holy crap, man. This is just wow. No one would have believed it. No one. You would have said there was something wrong with me, that I needed to go, that this is the stupidest girl I ever heard. And if I would have told you, hey, listen, in the third year of the Trump presidency, we're going to lose 87,000 people to a virus because Trump was too stupid to get masks for nurses and doctors to take care of sick people. You would have said, you're the dumbest girl ever. And here we are. Bill in Arizona.
Hi, sweetie.
Hey.
I thought of a couple more people to send masks to.
Yeah.
Our Congress critters. I mean, I got Martha and Debbie here. Forget the number.
Yeah.
But we should send them, and the messages can vary widely. I mean, there's a lot of things we might want to say to these people, like, where were you when we needed you? Or thanks for abandoning me. And just remember the extra stamp,
The extra stamp because the Postal Service's future is in doubt because Donald Trump gave a Trump donor the job of Postmaster General to destroy the Postal Service prior to the election. Now, looking at this Wisconsin Supreme Court decision about they don't want to do, mail-in ballots. Oh, no. They want everybody to show up. Right. They're terrified. So here you go. I mean, Devin Nunes actually admitted yesterday, I don't know, he said the thing you're not supposed to say out loud. He said out loud yesterday. He said that they had to ballot harvest in California. Katie Hill, remember the congresswoman who said that she had an affair with a congressional staffer. She's a freshman, so they made her resign right away. And they had a special election yesterday. And the Republican took the Democrat seat. But Devin Nunes actually went on freaking Laura Ingram's show and I don't know if they're both drunk or what, said the thing you're not supposed to say out loud, and that is that he did ballot harvesting. Ballot harvesting is exactly what happened in Georgia. It's when you go to people who hold absentee ballots and you tell them to give you their ballot and you will fill it out for them, or you will make sure it gets counted.
You're making my point,
right,
Randy.
Right.
My point is this: that the post office, through centuries now, has worked.
Yes.
For the people.
Yes.
We can save the post office in spite of these damn fools with a few extra stamps each. And I'm just not kidding.
Well, not with this guy heading up the Postal Service, but the good
It doesn't matter. The money's going to go in. The money's going to go in. They're going to see it, and they're going to say, where's this interest coming from?
Yeah, but all it takes is a piece of legislation that says, okay, so this new money that you're getting, which would make you solvent, we're going to now ask you to pay, pay forward another 50 years of pension. They got ways.
They can ask for what they want, but
they could write a piece of legislation privatizing the whole damn thing.
First, they got to say their seats, and that's what I'm saying. The battle starts now.
Yeah, it does.
We start fighting them for their seats.
And
whatever they do, they're going to do. But in the end run, we're going to own their seats. If they're going to abandon us, we're taking them seats back for the people. Support the post office. It's the one method of communication that there's no interference among the people.
It's true.
Remember that.
It's the greatest thing ever. And if you ever lived in a place that doesn't have a post office, which I have, you don't want to live without a post office. The amount of commerce that the post office enables is legion. And they're the greatest public servants in the history of public servants, mailmen. Maybe it's because I don't know. I haven't told the story in years. Maybe it's because when I was a little girl, I was skipping down the street with a plastic flute. The little recorders, but the school recorders were made out of wood. I wasn't old enough to go to school yet. All the kids had their wood recorders. I wanted a recorder. My mom got me a little plastic flute thing, recorder though. And I used to like to get up really early in the morning and go deliver the mail with my mailman. And one day I was with the mailman. We were delivering the mail, and there was a garden stone sticking out on the sidewalk in Brooklyn, and I tripped over the garden stone, and the plastic recorder literally went through the roof of my mouth, went through my palate. And the mailman saw me, when you have a head injury or you're bleeding from the amount of blood is just woo. It's it's like it makes Carrie, the last scene of Carrie, looks stupid. That's how much blood comes out. Anyway, this mailman bravely picks me up and carries me back to my parents' house so that I can get, medical, so I could get and since then, I have loved the mailman. And then when I went into talk radio, who were my first devoted listeners? It was mailmen, UPS drivers, truck drivers, over-the-road truck drivers, right? Because people who would be in a car, because back in the day, that's how you got your radio, was always in car listening. They were my first, group, my first big influx of people that made what I did viable through ratings, right? Because that's how it worked. And so I have never forgotten that. And I will go to the mat for the mailmen, the UPS drivers, the FedEx drivers, all of them. And this president is dangerous to all living things. Everything that works must be destroyed. Because if things work, he can't get reelected. If people's minds work, he can't get reelected. If people show up to vote, he can't get reelected. If the Postal Service collects your absentee ballot and gets it delivered on time, he can't get reelected. Everybody knows this. So what Devin Nunes was saying yesterday.
But now, even though we don't like it, we don't want to, but we are forced to have to ballot harvest because it's the only way to win. So as long as we have a robust ballot harvesting operation come November, and I hate saying that because it's illegal in 49 states, I think Mike Garcia is in a good shape to hold on to that seat because it's traditionally a Republican seat.
Holy crap. So there are the idiots saying the thing you're not supposed to say out loud. We ballot harvested in California in order to get Katie Hill's Democratic seat into the hands of Mark Garcia, a Republican. We literally went to people's houses, which is illegal in 49 states, and collected their absentee ballots instead of the Postal Service. And that was the only way that they could win. And he says it out loud. I mean, these people, it's like Mitch McConnell. He gets on TV and he says, I think that the solution to getting people back to work is to give bulletproof status to their employers so their employers aren't responsible for taking care to make sure their workplaces are clean. Let's do it that way. Give them immunity from lawsuits. Give them immunity from any worker, in a meatpacking plant that gets sick because they're crammed in like this, forced to, cut, right? Oh my God, they say the thing you're not supposed to say all the time out loud. Donald Trump said it the other day. Well, you know, if we had mail-in ballots, no Republican would ever win again, right? I mean, they just keep saying the thing you're not supposed to say, and they do it to make you numb, so that when this illegality happens, when this ruse happens, when this fraud occurs, you've been inoculated, and it doesn't shock you or make you angry or rile you up. All these guns in this country, never used for a protest that would protect anybody's right to live free from disease. Never. Or a guaranteed income during the pandemic, during a crisis, an emergency, a national health emergency. These are the things that America has had in its power to do since 1876, okay? We have always been able to, in health emergencies, keep our people safe. Now, all of a sudden, we got this madman who tells us to stick a lightsaber up our butts or drink Clorox. I mean, and Americans, there are some Americans in this country that would rather listen to a guy that told them to drink disinfectant than to epidemiologists. Wow. Have a great weekend.
Mary had a little man.
The false. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
What do you have to lose? I'll say it again. What do you have to lose? Take it. I really think they should take it. Try it. Hydroxychloroquine. It will be wonderful. It'll be so beautiful. It'll be a gift from heaven. What do you have to lose? Take it. Take it. Take it.
Who takes medical advice from that guy? Who does? No one. This is crazy. This is absolutely nuts. This is nutbaggery. Yesterday, he had a little, thing where he talked and said things. Just things. And one of the things that he said was...
A lot of good things have come out about the hydroxy. A lot of good things have come out.
The hydroxy.
And you'd be surprised at how many people are taking it, especially the frontline workers, before you catch it. The frontline workers, many are taking it. I happen to be taking it.
What?
I happen to be taking it.
What?
Hydroxychloroquine. I'm taking it. Hydroxychloroquine.
When?
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, when?
What?
A couple of weeks ago, I started taking it. Because I think it's good. I've heard a lot of good stories. And if it's not good, I'll tell you right, I'm not going to get hurt by it. It's been around for 40 years for malaria, for lupus, for other things. I take it. Frontline workers take it. A lot of doctors take it. Excuse me. A lot of doctors take it. I take it. Now, I hope to not be able to take it soon because, I hope they come up with some answer. But I think people should be allowed to. I got a letter from a doctor the other day from Westchester, New York, around the area. He didn't want anything. He just said, sir, I have hundreds of patients, and I give them hydroxychloroquine. I give them the Z-Pak, which is zithromycin, and I give them zinc. And out of the hundreds of patients, many hundreds, over 300 patients, I haven't lost one. He said, please keep pressing that, sir. And if you look at that phony report that was put in, that report on the hydroxy was given to people that were in extraordinarily bad condition. Extraordinarily bad. People that were dying. No, I think for whatever it's worth, I take it. I would have told you that 3-4 days ago, but we never had a chance because you never asked me the question.
Oh my God. Why can't we get a president who says Quaaludes are the cure for coronavirus? Wouldn't that be fun? Just asking.
Randi, I heard good things about
heroin. I'm just saying, I heard good things.
So that's the whole point, right? He keeps saying this drug has been around for 40 years. Well, opium has been around for 400 years. And, this, I heard good things is like, one of the addict interviews on intervention. Well, my friends told me good things. My friend said, the fentanyl patch was good. They had a very good full body high. So, I heard a lot of good things. This is what you say when you're 17 years old. I heard a lot of good things. Do you know what I mean? If he had any evidence that hydroxychloroquine worked, then riddle me this, Batman. Why isn't the rest of the world giving hydroxy? Why are we watching China go through another lockdown of another 108 million people if it works so good? I mean, somebody needs to call this man up and tell him about this Nigerian prince scam because, he's going to, do it. He's going to send money to the Nigerian prince over the email. So, how does hydroxy interact with Adderall? I know everybody's asking that question. Nobody wants to answer, but we're all asking. I don't know. How does it interact with stupidity? How's that for a question? How's that? I take it. Take it. It'll all be beautiful. It'll be so beautiful. I mean, it's just like so amazing. Why are we listening to Donald Trump explain azithromycin? Why are we listening to this man explain antibiotics?
Antibiotics used to solve every problem. Now one of the biggest problems the world has is the germ has gotten so brilliant that the antibiotic can't keep up with it. And they're constantly trying to come up with a new. People go to a hospital and they go for a heart operation. That's no problem, but they end up dying from problems. You know the problems I'm talking about.
Oh, for God's sake.
We hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. And I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do, either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that, too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number in the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
I'm going to sniff my Sharpie. That cures corona. Let's sniff glue, everybody. Why can't we have a president that advocates for the comeback for Quaaludes? I have to say, I don't like drugs. I think everybody knows I don't even smoke the pot. I don't enjoy. It's fine if you like it. I'm not a judgy person. I don't care. I think, I'll say this again, as the disclaimer, I think I might be the only person I know who does not smoke the pot. Just don't enjoy. I'm already fat. I'm already tired. I'm already hungry all day. Don't need to be more hungry, more tired. That's just me. That's just me. But why can't we bring back the Quaalude? This is one drug I would do. Why is he advocating for things like hydroxychloroquine because it's been around for 40 years? Again, heroin, opium, poppies have been around for 400 years. And I don't see, that heroin and shoving, a lightsaber up my butt or injecting Clorox or laying in a freaking tanning bed is the solution for the problem that we find ourselves in. No, and the only reason why this man is saying this, the only reason why...
Did the White House doctor recommend that you take that? Is that why you're taking it?
Yeah, White House doctor. Didn't recommend. No, I asked him, what do you think? He said, well, if you'd like it. I said, yeah, I'd like it. I'd like to take it. A lot of people are taking it. A lot of frontline workers are taking hydroxychloroquine. A lot of I don't take it because, hey, people said, oh, maybe he owns the company. No, I don't own the company. You know what? I want the people of this nation to feel good. I don't want them being sick. And there's a very good chance that this has an impact, especially early on. But you look at frontline workers, you look at doctors and nurses, a lot of them are taking it as a preventative. And they're taking, totally unrelated, but they take the Z-Pak or the zithromycin for possible infection. Now, I haven't taken that other than an original dose because all you need, you don't have to take it simultaneously. But the zinc you do take. So I'm taking the two, the zinc and the hydroxy. And all I can tell you is, so far, I seem to be okay.
Can you explain further why you started taking it? Have you been exposed?
Yeah, because no, not at all. I just said that.
No.
I've had so many letters from people, like the one I told you about. I got it last week. I'll give you. Would you like a copy of it?
Yeah.
I'd love to give you. If you ask Molly, she'll give you a copy of it. But this is a doctor. He doesn't want anything. I don't know him. Never heard of him. But he treats people that we're talking about. And he said out of hundreds of people that he's treated, he hasn't lost one. And he just wanted me to know about it. That's all. He wasn't saying, gee, could I have dinner with you, Mr. President? I'd like to come to the White House. But I've received many such letters. I've received a lot of positive letters. And it seems to have an impact. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But if it doesn't, you're not going to get sick or die. This is a pill that's been used for a long time, for 30, 40 years on the malaria and on lupus too.
And that's the problem. Plaquenil, which is the brand name, is now in short supply for people who actually take it for lupus, for people who actually take it for rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, really, this man, come on, just recommend something fun, something more fun, something funner. Quaaludes. Roarers. The original.
At RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
Uh-oh, this is Fox News.
A VA study showed that among a population of veterans in a hospital receiving this treatment, those with vulnerable conditions, respiratory conditions, heart ailments, they died.
They died.
There are also a number of other studies out, including the Journal of the American Medical Association, which examined some 1,438 individuals in the New York area across 25 hospitals from the middle of March to the end of March. The study was a real chance to look at the benefits that the president insisted were hydroxychloroquine. They concluded that among residents hospitalized in metropolitan New York with COVID-19, the treatment or both compared with neither treatment, no statistical differences. A second study done by Jacid Jalaris and colleagues at the New York Presbyterian Hospital, Columbia University Irving Medical Center in northern Manhattan from March 7th to April 8th also showed there were no visible differences, that the risk of intubation or death was not significantly higher or lower among patients who received hydroxychloroquine versus those who did not. The VA study to which the president alluded wasn't a loaded political one. It was a test on patients there, and those who took it in a vulnerable population, including those with respiratory or other conditions, they died. I want to stress again, they died. If you are in a risky population here and you are taking this as a preventative treatment to ward off the virus, or in a worst case scenario, you are dealing with the virus, and you are in this vulnerable population, it will kill you. What? I cannot stress enough. This will kill you.
Fatality.
Oops. Quaaludes will not kill you. Unless you took like the whole jar. Do you know what I'm saying? Wow. So now there's a debate over whether or not Donald Trump is really taking it or if he's saying he's taking it, because if he's taking it, it would be the stupidest thing imaginable. So that fact argues that he is taking it. On the other hand, he says he's taking it, and nothing he ever says is true. So this is the dilemma we find ourselves in. And the man is giving medical advice on the TV. He says his doctor, who is now Sean P. Connolly, put out a letter. I don't know if you saw it or not, but there was a letter that was released. It was very ambiguous that he counseled him and he told him. But you know why we're talking about hydroxychloroquine again? Because of two things. Number one, Dr. Rick Bright testified the other day. Remember that, everybody? And then he was interviewed on 60 Minutes. Now, I can't play the clips of 60 Minutes because they flag us. They don't allow us to use their copyrighted material. So we're not allowed to play you the clips of Dr. Rick Bright on 60 Minutes. So I would suggest that if you missed it, you go to the YouTube, 60 Minutes YouTube site, and you watch that, because the testimony, the actual story that Rick Bright gave under oath to Congress about this distraction of hydroxychloroquine and how he was, trying so hard to not allow for the FDA to give it emergency use off-label authorization. So he wrote the rule so that only hospitals with hospitalized patients could even think about administering this drug. And then he signed the emergency use authorization because he knew he needed to be inside BARDA for this epidemic, this pandemic, for which he had been training his entire life. Well, that wasn't enough, right? They kept on insisting. They bought 29 million doses of this stuff, and he finally, was removed and became a whistleblower and told the whole story of how the president was doing this for political and corrupt purposes, and that it distracted from the mission of getting remdesivir out there, which has been shown to do a little bit, like Tamiflu shortens the flu in people who take it early, while they're finding that remdesivir shortens the duration of coronavirus if you get diagnosed and take it early. So anyway, that happened. Rick Bright testified and then went on 60 Minutes, and this just infuriated Donald Trump to the point of retaliation. The other thing that the president is trying to distract us from is that Donald Trump has been retaliating against everybody since the beginning of his administration and the firing of Sally Yates. Okay, that's how far back the retaliatory strikes that Donald Trump does has been going on. Lately, during this pandemic, instead of focusing like a laser on testing and swabs and reagent shortages and opening and putting out good guidance so that we don't have 50 different patchwork pieces and then counties and then and cities doing their own thing. Everybody's doing their own thing because there's no national leadership on how we should be responding to a pandemic. I mean, it's just such an abdication of his leadership. Instead, the man is still focused on his favorite thing, retaliation, and he's been firing inspector generals. He even, let me tell you, he fired the inspector general I know the latest one is Steve Linick at the State Department, because Steve Linick was investigating Mike Pompeo and an $8 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia that Congress specifically blocked. Congress voted to not allow the transfer of this $8 billion weapons package to Saudi. Now, Trump vetoed it. And this was Flynn's baby. I don't know if you remember Michael Flynn. Yeah, he's back too, right? Michael Flynn tried to do this back when Michael Flynn was on the transition team with a group called IP3, which was a whole bunch of retired generals, Bud McFarlane, etc. And they were trying to make some money by doing a transfer of nuclear power plants to Saudi Arabia. At the beginning, they got caught. This is part of why Michael Flynn is such a douche, okay? But he's been firing all these IGs. He fired the IG who's in charge of our pandemic response. Seriously, he's fired so many.
While most of the nation has been focused on the economic and health consequences of this horrific pandemic, President Trump has been at least partly focused on purging independent inspectors general from his administration. Most recently, on Friday night, when State Department Inspector General Steve Linick was shown the door. This follows the president ousting the Inspector General of the intelligence community, Michael Atkinson, who had followed the law when it came to the whistleblower complaint about the president pressuring Ukraine to dig up dirt on the Bidens. The president seeking a replacement for the woman who ran the office of the Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services, Christy Grimm. Grimm issued a report in March reporting that a survey of hospitals in the U.S. suggested widespread and severe shortages of PPE, coronavirus testing supplies, and more.
Oh, get her out.
The president pushing out acting Pentagon Inspector General Glenn Fine.
Right.
A man with a reputation for independence who was leading oversight of $2.2 trillion for coronavirus relief, but will no longer be able to serve in that role because of the president's dismissal of him. To say nothing, of course, of President Trump pushing out whistleblowers such as Dr. Rick Bright or those who offer independent voices willing to speak truth to power.
It's a pattern. I mean, the man just retaliates against anybody and everybody that would hold him accountable for ridiculous decisions and corruption, waste, fraud. That's what's going on. That's why you're talking about hydroxy.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Sir, I want to get to that firing of the State Department Inspector General on Friday night, Steve Linick, fourth Inspector General removed by the president in the last several weeks. What do you say to Democratic critics who say what the president is doing is undermining any idea of independent oversight?
Oh, I don't mourn the loss of people when they leave this bureaucracy. There's always going to be somebody better to replace them, somebody more loyal, not to the president necessarily, but to the Trump agenda. That's what's important.
I spoke with senior officials both in the White House and the State Department. I understand their reasoning. I don't know if they're going to provide a more robust rationale for why they do it, but I understand it. I don't disagree with it. I don't think anything this administration could say is going to satisfy some people. There'll still be people huffing and puffing and stomping their feet. But again, it is the president's decision whether or not to hire or terminate an inspector general.
Look, this president thinks he's above the law. He's above criticism. He wants to get away with anything that he can. And he does not understand that in the function of government, you have a Congress, you have inspector generals who say, by the way, Mr. President, what you're doing is wrong and it may be illegal. This has been his modus operandi from day one.
And that's just the truth. And the reason why Donald Trump fed the media this notion that he's taking hydroxychloroquine out of the blue yesterday is to distract from the fact that he is firing every single person tasked with doing oversight on waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. That's what inspector generals do. Now, Steve Linick is just the latest to go. You had Glenn Fine. He was the executive director of the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee. He was overseeing the disbursement of money from the CARES Act, this multiple trillion-dollar bill, not the PPP, which we know went to private jet owners, and we know went to a giant airline industry, and they're not even committing now to keep their employees, which is a requirement, so they said, in the PPP, that you couldn't lay off your staff, that you couldn't lay off your employees, you had to keep them employed, right? And there was a big hearing today. Steve Mnuchin is like, he testified, oh, well, people shouldn't have to go back to work and die for the stock market, but he wouldn't commit to having, a transparent oversight look-see at who got this money, right? And that's what Glenn Fine was supposed to be doing, and they fired Glenn Fine. This goes back to April 7th, okay? It was $2.2 trillion that went out the door in the first CARES Act, and they fired him and said, oh, Steve Mnuchin will do the oversight. Oh, yeah, really? Then you had, he was picked by Michael Horowitz of the Justice Department, okay? And then you had the Intelligence Committee, the IGIC member, Michael Atkinson, who was consulted with the whistleblower Ukraine shakedown thing, which caused the president to be impeached. Remember, the president is impeached. He will be impeached for the rest of his life. And so what did he do? He fired Michael Atkinson. Here he's protecting Mike Pompeo. And Mike Pompeo needs to meet the bus because Idiot Boy sat there yesterday and said, I don't know this guy, Steve Linick. I never met the guy. Of course, he never met him, right? He never met Parnas. He never met Fruman. I barely knew Michael Cohen. He handled a few things for him. I mean, crazy, right? But he sat there on the TV and then he said that he literally... Wait a minute. Let me find it. I'm looking for it. He literally was happy to fire this guy because Mike Pompeo asked him to.
explain, sir, why you decided to fire the Inspector General at the State Department?
Yeah, I don't know him at all. I never even heard of him. But I was asked to by the State Department, by Mike. So I don't know him, never heard of him. But they asked me to terminate him. I have the absolute right as president to terminate. I said, who appointed him? And they said, President Obama. I said, look, I'll terminate him. I was happy to do it. Mike requested that I do it. He should have done it a long time ago, in my opinion. He's an Obama appointment, and he had some difficulty. But I just don't know who he is. I don't know. I never heard his name.
Yeah, he doesn't know him. Never met him. Doesn't know him. Now, a million pictures will show up with Steve Linick and Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo and all this, okay? But, I mean, the reason why Steve Linick was investigating Mike Pompeo was because the Congress had asked Steve Linick to do it. The House Foreign Affairs Committee chairman, who I know is Eliot Engel, and Eliot Engel asked Steve Linick to start an investigation into this weapons sale to Saudi Arabia, especially considering these things. Number one, Jamal Khashoggi was dismembered by a Saudi hit squad that went to the embassy, the Saudi embassy in Turkey, with a bone saw. Jamal Khashoggi was an American green card holder. He was a columnist for the Washington Post. That's number one. Number two, turns out that attack in Pensacola at the naval base that killed 3 naval, Navy guys and wounded 8 others in a classroom, the cadets from the Saudi Royal Air Force who were here training because we sold them American equipment. Turns out that was an Al-Qaeda cell. Oh, yeah. That was an Al-Qaeda cell.
The Royal Saudi Air Force, which flies American-made aircraft, is an important military partner and has long had a training relationship with the United States. On December 6, 2nd Lieutenant Mohammed Saeed al-Shamrani, a member of the Royal Saudi Air Force, entered a building on grounds of the Pensacola Naval Air Station and killed 3 U.S. sailors and severely wounded 8 other Americans. He was killed during the attack. This was an act of terrorism. The evidence shows that the shooter was motivated by jihadist ideology. During the course of the investigation, we learned that the shooter posted a message on September 11th of this year stating the countdown has begun.
Great.
During the Thanksgiving weekend, he then visited the 9/11 memorial in New York City. He also posted other anti-American, anti-Israeli, and jihadi messages on social media, including 2 hours before his attack. Early reports indicated that the shooter arrived at the site accompanied by other Saudi cadets who took video during the attack. These reports turned out not to be accurate. The shooter arrived by himself. The other Saudi cadets happened to be in the area, and after the attack began, they took some videos of the resulting commotion around the building. They fully cooperated in the investigation, as did all other Saudi cadets who were interviewed by the FBI at the base and in other bases around the country. After al-Shamrani entered the building and cased the facility, he proceeded to walk around, shooting down his unarmed victims in cold blood.
So let's sell them more American-made military hardware. Let's do that. I mean, that is why Congress said no. No. Well, Pompeo was working very hard to get $8 billion worth of arms sold to Saudi Arabia. So the House, the committee, the Foreign Relations Committee, they asked for an investigation. And this guy, Steve Linick, was very close to completing it. He needed to interview Mike Pompeo, who would not cooperate.
The This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Yeah, so we're being told right now that Secretary Pompeo refused to sit down for an interview with the State Department Inspector General as part of an investigation that they were doing into the Trump administration and Secretary Pompeo's position to declare an emergency last year, which then prompted the fast track of an $8 billion arms sale to Saudi Arabia. Now, that in doing so, they went around Congress because Congress had put a hold on those arms sales as a result of the Jamal Khashoggi murder.
Right.
So that is part of what is being looked at here by these Democrats in the Senate and the House who are wondering precisely why Secretary Pompeo recommended that President Trump fire the Inspector General, Steve Linick. Now, there's another allegation that the Inspector General is also looking into some of the personal tasks that Secretary Pompeo asked a political appointee to do. So this is all part of the puzzle that they are trying to figure out right now.
It seems, Dana, that what the president has done in this particular case is pretty much in line with what we've seen him do over the past 3 years plus, isn't it?
It is 3 years. I mean, Wolf, we were just looking at it. How about the last month? It's really remarkable. And we've said so many times during the Trump years that this is not normal. This is one of those times where that should be in flashing neon lights. It is not normal.
It is not normal for a president of the United States to fire 4 inspector generals in retaliation for them doing their jobs. And of course, again, you have, this one, Steve Linick, who works at the State Department, who was investigating Mike Pompeo's going around Congress to further an $8 billion arms sale. $8 billion. I mean, that's like some serious cash, right? To Saudi Arabia. And it was, I believe that the material was made by Raytheon, and the lobbyists want that deal to go through. Congress said no because of what happened at the Pensacola Naval Station, which was Saudi Arabian terrorism. Can you imagine if Obama was president of the United States and Saudis went into the naval base in Pensacola and killed 3 sailors and wounded 8 people? And then Obama was trying to sell Saudis more weapons. I mean, the outrage, okay? Because of that, and because of the bone saw scenario, the dismembering of Jamal Khashoggi, which was caught on tape, for God's sake, okay? So Congress said no. So the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Foreign Relations Committee in the House asked the Inspector General to look into Donald Trump's false claim that this was an emergency transfer of $8 billion worth of weapons. Donald Trump declared some fake emergency. There was no emergency that required arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Oh, it's Iran. It's Iran. He pulled out of the Iran deal, and then he declares that Iran is, an emergency situation, and Saudi needs all the weapons it can get. Congress said no. That's the point, okay? This is very Ronald Reagan with the Boland Amendment that said, no, we're not going to fund a war in Central America. And Ronald Reagan did it anyway. But that's what inspector generals are here for. And Donald Trump has fired every single inspector general that has found that Donald Trump extorts people. Ukraine fired that particular, that there were $2.2 trillion in the CARES Act that was going to go out the door. And that it needed oversight, fired that guy, Mr. Fine, who was in charge of the pandemic response under the CARES Act. And then he had the nerve to say that, Pompeo also lied. Pompeo said he's not aware that he was under investigation. Pompeo was asked to do an interview on this subject with the Inspector General, Steve Linick. And as soon as Pompeo was asked to sit down for an interview, that's when Steve Linick was fired. So this idea that, Pompeo didn't know anything about, no, and that's why we're talking about hydroxychloroquine, because Donald Trump wants to obfuscate. He wants to muddy the water. He wants you to talk about this random 40-year-old malaria drug as a cure for corona instead of a really good one. 40 centuries of opium, everybody. 40 centuries. Not advocating for the use of opium. Not advocating for Quaaludes, which, by the way, I found to be non-addictive. Just saying. And the guy is like snorting Sudafed and Adderall all day, and I don't know if he got the potassium shot to help you. Who knows? But this is why we're talking about that. This is why. And Donald Trump sits there and says, Pompeo did ask me to fire him. So I said, Mike, who appointed him? Did I appoint him? No, he was an Obama appointee. Okay, I'll fire him. And then actually says, now the second issue that they were investigating, and this is a smaller issue, but it's still an issue of abuse, okay, and waste, that Pompeo was using State Department employees to wash his dishes and pick up his dry cleaning and walk his dog. Donald Trump said that's an appropriate use of State Department officials. You know why? You know why, everybody? Because maybe Mike Pompeo's wife didn't have time to wash the dishes. No, I'm serious. His wife. His wife.
Now I have you telling me about dog walking, washing dishes. And you know what? I'd rather have him on the phone with some world leader than have him wash dishes because maybe his wife isn't there or his kids
God.
are there. What are you telling me? It's terrible. It's so stupid. You know how stupid that sounds to the world?
That is not the main focus of the Inspector General's investigation into Mike Pompeo. The main issue is an $8 billion arms sale to Saudi Arabia after they committed acts of terrorism here on our soil and dismembered an American journalist. That is the issue, okay? And for Mike Pompeo to sit there and lie and say, oh, I wasn't even aware that I was being investigated when clearly he was asked to sit for an interview on these things. It's bizarre. It's just, the lying is freaking endless. Endless. And it's all retaliatory. This has absolutely nothing to do with good government. It has everything to do with being able to advance the corporate interests of Raytheon, or advance Michael Flynn's ability to enrich himself, or help former generals that start a lobby shop like IP3 to make money. And they get caught, and what does he do? He fires everybody and then puts us on this tangent about how he's on hydroxy. He's taking hydroxy. You know what? I don't care if he is or not. And if hydroxy is bad for you, without having, been hospital, I don't know. All I know is this is another cover-up. This is another distraction. This is another obfuscation of what is really being done inside of our government at the behest of Donald Trump's money-making scheme to be, as president of the United States. And that's all he cares about. None of this death bothers him. We're over 90,000 dead. He's good with it. He's fine with it. He's asking, the states are fudging their numbers. You know that, right? Georgia got caught. They mangled their numbers. They have 38,000 cases now. I mean, they're trying to tell you, oh, the cases were steadily going down for 14 days. And then you find a representative in Georgia who actually was a statistician and knows number, and looked at the graphs and charts and said, this is insanity. They're mixing up days. They're saying, these are the numbers for April 7th, and then the next day is the numbers for May 12th, and then the next day is the number for, April 9th. And, he said, this is insanity. This makes no sense. And then today, Florida decided that they were going to fire one of their data scientists, a woman named Rebecca, who was in charge of posting all the Florida stats by zip code and everything else. And they fired her, the health data scientist. They fired her and they crashed her dashboard, and they took all her data offline. They never explained why they're doing this. So she had a meeting to tell the people she works with, the other data scientists. Name's Rebecca Jones. This is the Florida health data scientist, right? She said that, they created this dashboard at the Florida Department of Health with data scientists and public health officers. Rebecca Jones was in charge of it, and they fired her. And they cited, she gave a farewell, to her staff, and she said, these reasons are beyond my division's control. I'm no longer managing the dashboard. I'm no longer involved in the publication or answering questions or fixing the errors in any shape or form. I don't know what the new team's intentions are for the data access, but I can tell you they are restricting it. She said, quote, I understand, appreciate, and even share your concern about all the dramatic changes that have occurred and those that are yet to come. As a word of caution, I would not expect the new team to continue the same level of accessibility and transparency that I made central to the process during the first 2 months. After all, my commitment to both accessibility and transparency is largely, arguably, entirely the reason I was fired. And then she said, it was great working with you guys. Good luck. Stay safe. And now Florida is obstructing access to all the data, the raw data, the everything that goes into the dashboard. The dashboard was taken offline. It was crashed. The data was removed. It used to be that you were able to show, like you could put in your zip code and you could find all the cases in your zip code, district by district, area by area, county by county. It's a cover-up, man.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Florida starts to reopen. The architect and manager of Florida's COVID-19 dashboard says she's been removed from her position. In an email to CBS 12 News, Rebecca Jones says she was ordered to censor some data but refused to go, in her words, manually change data to drum up support for the plan to reopen, which she says ultimately led to her being removed. Over the last few weeks, Jones says the dashboard crashed and data disappeared with no explanation, and she says it still hasn't been fully repaired. We are still waiting to hear back from the Florida Department of Health.
And you will not. Just like we're all waiting to hear back from the Florida Department of Unemployment, okay? And nobody is hearing back. This is a rigged system. This is. The numbers are being faked. They are being doctored in Georgia. They are being faked and doctored in Florida. And if you won't go along with it, you will be fired. So you have the Florida dashboard, the architect, the data scientist who built the Florida dashboard, Rebecca Jones, being fired because she wouldn't fake the numbers. She wouldn't stop the transparency. She gave people unobstructed access to the raw data and all these things. The University of Central Florida, their data scientists said, we wouldn't accept this lack of transparency for any other natural disaster. Why are we willing to accept it here? Debbie Burks, a scarf lady, she actually praised Florida for that dashboard. She was on Face the Nation on CBS in April, and she was saying that the Florida dashboard is one of the best raw data compilations, and it's just the best bar graphs, and it's searchable by zip code. You could see county by county where you are, how prevalent it is, what you need to do. So, she said that's the kind of knowledge and power we need to put into the hands of the American people so they can see where the virus is, where the cases are, and they can make their own decisions. And all of a sudden, they censor all this data in Florida because they want to open up Florida. In fact, Florida is open. And I'm telling you, depending where you go, same types of businesses, hair salons, nail salons, they're doing it differently. Everybody's doing it differently. Everybody thinks they know what to do, and nobody is doing it the same. So you have some places where you must wear a mask. You have other places where only the people in the place of business wear a mask, and you don't need to wear one. You have places where there's only like 25% of the customers normally allowed in are allowed in, and you have places that are totally packed. No limit on how many people can come in. Not 25%. Not, you could have more than 10 people. Everyone is making it up as they go along because there is no leadership. And everyone here in Florida is looking at the firing of this woman as being a giant red, hair on fire. This is not normal. And that's what Trump is all about. He's all about sacrificing you. You're dispensable. You're disposable. What isn't dispensable and what isn't disposable is his desire to make money. His desire. His needs, his wants, his everything. And so that's why he's sitting there talking about taking hydroxychloroquine, and it's the be-all, end-all, and it's keeping him, who cares if he is or not? I don't care. I don't care. Just advocating for it is irresponsible enough, okay? It is. Dr. Fauci told you not to do it. When Dr. Bright testified, he said that he was forced to give the signature for the off-label use for emergency use only for hydroxychloroquine, so he wrote it so that it could only be used in a hospital setting. And he didn't want to even do that. Now they're censoring data so that we would know what kind of environment where our kids are living in, so that we would know what kind of environment our seniors are living in, our parents are living in, so we would know whether or not it's okay or it's not okay. So we can't produce any sort of reasoned judgment about how to conduct or self-govern, put ourselves, govern yourselves accordingly, right? So, I mean, this woman is speaking out. She's trying to tell you. She said, if you look at our data services, there's a lot of publicity of available data because it was critical information. The efforts in the academic community to do serious data modeling is critical right now. She compared, and the people that are saying, well, she's gotten fired now because she's providing this, critical data, and they crashed the site and took the data off to hide the data, that she actually says, I'm being censored. That's why I was fired. I was fired because I wouldn't prioritize the economy over people's lives. I wouldn't make that decision. Scientists in the government are being censored, and the president of the United States is giving you his medical advice about crazy pills that you could. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so some of the scientists at the University of Central Florida at this LabX, they said that they're very worried about this, and they tried to request the previously available data, and the Department of Health here in Florida told them they're not going to consider any requests for data until May of 2021. Everything is in lockdown till May of 2021, next year. They're saying, you know what this is like? This is like, misreporting hurricane information. And it's very unusual. This stuff does not happen, okay? It's not supposed to happen. Americans who are being left on their own to make decisions about their children's health and their health and whether or not they could go to a hair salon, whether or not they could. And, Americans they're not even screaming about their money. These people in Michigan and these people in Wisconsin, by the way, that is a failed state. It is. Wisconsin has become a failed state. What is a failed state? That is a state that has failed to perform the core function of government, right? And the core function of government is basic security. And Wisconsin is failing to protect people's basic security and health, right? They're just failing at it. And you had the primary, right, where they tried to vote by mail. No, can't vote by mail. 50 people contracted coronavirus during that. Now you've got these protesters, 72 of them contracted coronavirus because they wouldn't, do anything that would protect other people. They refused to respect others, right? You have all of this going on in our country, and no one knows how to orient themselves because we're not operating on any facts. There's just this disinformation campaign to make everyone feel like it's over. We're open and everybody's going to figure it out. Based on what? Based on what? We don't have any evidence to base our decisions on. They want to prioritize Trump's economy. That's what they're interested in. That Trump doesn't go down as the most failed president in the history of the world. A guy who inherited 73 months in a row of expanding growth and job creation, and it all came to a screeching halt because he decided to lie about a virus. He decided to lie. Now, they're pretending that public health is what damaged the economy. No, the economy is damaged because we ignored evidence that would protect public health. The government failed in its basic mission, which is basic security for its people. And so it's forfeiting not only its legitimacy, but it's endangering Americans now. And he is determined to cover it up for as long as he can. For as long as he can.
RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
So basically, here's what this election comes down to. They're betting that between now and November, you're going to come down with amnesia. They figure you're going to forget what their agenda did to this country. They think you'll just believe that they've changed.
Huh.
These are the folks whose policies helped devastate our middle class. They drove our economy into a ditch. And we got in there and put on our boots, and we pushed and we shoved, and we were sweating, and these guys were standing, watching us and sipping on a Slurpee. And they were pointing at us saying, how come you're not pushing harder? How come you're not pushing faster? And then when we finally got the car up, and it's got a few dings and a few dents, it's got some mud on it, we're gonna have to do some work on it. They point at everybody and say, look what these guys did to your car. After we got it out of the ditch. And then they got the nerve to ask for the keys back. I don't want to give them the keys back. Oh. They don't know how to drive.
Oh. They don't know how to govern. They don't. They do know how to make money on the sly. They do know how to, commit fraud. They do know how to lie. They do know how to cheat. They do know how to write legislation that benefits them. They do know how to do insider trading based on, classified briefings they get. They know all that stuff. But do they know anything about good government? Do they know anything about protecting the basic security of the people? Do they care about doing any of that? Hell no, they don't. That is why Mitch McConnell is called the Grim Reaper. He loves death. Donald Trump is a malignant narcissist who is incapable of feeling anything. Anything. He doesn't feel shame. He doesn't feel guilt. He doesn't have remorse. He doesn't feel anything. If he felt his feelings, just even for a split second, the man would collapse on himself because he would realize and feel all of the fraud that is him. He would understand that he is a bad, bad man. And that would just, make his mind collapse. Basic security, that is what government is supposed to do. And we don't have that because we have a government that is more interested in $8 billion worth of arms deals in a pandemic, and a president distracting from that in a pandemic. Then we have a government that cares about you. And there's nothing you could tell the death cult. There's nothing. There's no way. They're going to have to experience it for themselves. I told you that there was this one guy who, we don't like to use names, Nino, he was going to the Trump rallies. I mean, he was like so completely racist, outwardly racist. And like I've said, I don't even know what color Nino is. I don't think he knows what color he is, okay? And he was so about to, and now all of a sudden he's in his mid-70s and he lost his job. He was still working, couldn't afford to retire, and terrified now to leave his house. All of a sudden it dawns on him, maybe this wasn't a good idea. Maybe it wasn't. Rob in Arizona.
Hi, Randy. Hey, just before I get to my main point, I wanted to say about the hydroxychloroquine. It would be great if the reporters would bait him into saying, hey, you know what would be great for ratings and TV ratings? If you took one of these pills live every night for 2 weeks on live television.
Nancy Pelosi is so good at this. I can't even tell you, okay? Did you hear what she said when she was asked about whether or not the president is taking the hydroxy, and what does she think about it?
Yeah. Yeah. But he would probably cheat and take Tic Tacs anyways. But,
right.
The other thing I wanted to say is, like, my summary is this: Trump just has a war on truth and accountability.
Why?
And if you don't believe that at this point, then you're part of the cult, basically. And that cult is a minority. And I think.
But people have to answer the question why, and there are only two reasons, okay? And one is that he can't help it. This is who he is. He is a fraud. He is a person who, never ever thinks the rules apply to him. Everything that he does is in bounds, no matter how fraudulent it is, no matter how he rips people off. He did it with, all the students at the Trump University. He did it with the first responders. He did it with the vets, with the fake charity. I mean, that's the first reason. And the second reason is because it's better for his agenda to have everybody out there risking their lives for his damn economy.
And I like when reporters ask the followers, I've seen it a couple of times, what do you like about him? And they can't answer. They kind of stumble around because they know whatever might come out of their mouth probably won't sound very good.
You know what's really sick, though, are the people that say that, I had a video, I didn't pull it because the guy was cursing up a storm, and it's a lot of work to bleep it. But anyway, there was a guy who went into a Costco, just like all the other videos I've showed you about this Karen that didn't want to, in Dana Point, that wouldn't wear a mask into Gelson's, and they say, I was born free, I don't need to wear a stinking mask, okay? What is that about?
And that's a funny thing because corporations and companies can have rules on, no shirt, no shoes, no service.
Right.
So this falls right into that whole line. And this is even more important because it's public safety. If you want to go, go into a stadium with a bunch of other people to prove your point, fine, mingle, breathe deep,
No,
read everyone. Repeat.
No, you can't have that because if you have that, those people are then going to go and do things that people who didn't agree to that deal are now exposed to. So that's why you need one unified plan. You need one set of rules that everybody observes for a certain amount of time so that we can, do this properly. And we have no leadership, and so everybody's making it up as they go along. And then you have these douchey people that show zero respect for others and think they could yell fire in a crowded theater, and that's their right. It is not your right to endanger others.
And you're right, Randy. It comes right back up to the top. They failed at the federal level, and as soon as the public found out they were being lied to and not taken care of, that's when the market crashed. Everyone was a free-for-all. It's like every person for themselves, every state for themselves.
Yeah, it's very sick and sad, and this is not leadership. This is, a cult. This is a death cult, and people are literally, 2,000 died last night. We just hit 91,000 deaths. What is he, what, how could you look at somebody who is responsible for 91,000 innocent Americans dying, and he's talking about, a drug that doesn't work as being the panacea, and to go ahead and disrespect each other and just get out there. Just get out there and endanger everybody else, endanger their kids, endanger their grandparents, endanger their parents. And what kind of a place have we turned? I mean, it's like, it's a failed state. It's just a failed state. Now, Oregon, you're having a primary today. I am aware of that. And a county court judge has said governor can't close down the state.
Fatality. Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
As far as the president is concerned, he's our president, and I would rather he not be taking something that has not been approved by the scientists, especially in his age group and in his, shall we say, weight group, what is morbidly obese, they say. So I think it's not a good idea.
She is so good at this. She knows just how to troll him, just how. She knows exactly what to say. He's morbidly obese. He's old. And, he is in the high-risk group, and he's taking hydroxychloroquine. I just wish he wouldn't take it. I really do. I mean, he's our president and all. I pray for him. Joe on Long Island.
Hi, Randy. How you doing?
Good.
Rebecca Jones is my new hero.
Yeah.
She's my new hero. She worked for 16 hours a day for a month trying to get this whole thing together, and she wouldn't lie. They wanted her to manipulate the numbers so that they could open up.
Yeah, and that's the same thing that's going on in Georgia and Wisconsin. You've got a Supreme Court there that tells people that you can't have stay-at-home orders. They twisted themselves into pretzels and to mangle what the governor is allowed to do. And the same thing's happening in Oregon. Georgia mangled their numbers. You got 2 weeks after Georgia opened, you got clusters in churches and choirs in California. And they're covering all of this information up. Now, if it's not dangerous, I just want to know if it's not dangerous and if it's all so good and everybody should go out wherever you are. Why are they bothering to cover up the information that people could govern themselves accordingly?
And where's the GOP on this? I mean, she voiced her opinion. She said, no, I'm not going to lie, and risked her job. They fired her. And Mitch McConnell, nobody's out there protecting her.
He's the Grim Reaper,
putting
dude.
Country first.
Oh, please.
Nobody's putting country first.
You really think the Republicans give a damn about country or
no,
democracy? Or Donald Trump said he only likes certain kinds of Americans, right? He's made that very clear. He doesn't like John McCain's kind of patriotism because he was captured. He only likes people that weren't captured, right? I mean, he's made it very clear that this society of ours, that this country of ours, that this democracy of ours, it's not for everybody. He doesn't care about anybody, just the people that are loyal to him. That's it. Everyone else can drop dead. I mean, that's his message to the American people, is who needs you? No one cares about you. He's doing it to the senior citizens. They're a throwaway, group of people, right? You even had the lieutenant governor of Texas get on the TV and say, I'm old. There are more important things in life than living.
Disgusting.
Disgusting. Right? You got, all of these nursing homes. Mitch McConnell wants to give them immunity from lawsuits. You've got clusters in the meatpacking plants, and Donald Trump orders them back to work without PPE. You had Rick Bright testify that the frontline workers, the nurses, the doctors, that we're in deep crap, he said. I mean, but he said it, right? Because they were warned that we didn't have sufficient quantities of PPE. And what does this president do? After being president for almost 4 years, he says, I was left empty cupboards. Well, I got news for you. If you moved into an apartment and there was nothing in there and the cupboards were empty and you're living there 4 years later complaining about your empty cupboards, the problem is not with the tenant that left. The problem is with you.
But he sold 18 tons of supplies, though. Oh, she hung up on me.
No, I didn't hang up on you.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. Randy, before you go. I don't agree with what you said yesterday about the super duper missile.
Yeah.
Because I actually have proof that Wile E. Coyote bought that missile from the Acme Corporation and used it against a Roadrunner.
Right. Nothing new there. You're right. I stand corrected. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Bye. Yeah, he watches cartoons. I mean, this is our cartoon president. That is who this is. This is a joke. It's a running joke, except it's deadly. Olga in California.
Hi, Randy.
Hey, Olga.
Well, the joke's on us.
I'm
so sorry to say, because if it's false that he's taking hydrochloroquine, then this is for somebody to make a stock market move, and he's a killer. He's deliberately a killer. If it's true, then he's the true head of Death Cult. He's the true head of Death Cult 45.
Well, of course he's the true head of the Death Cult.
He's a schizophrenic, man.
No, he is a malignant narcissist. He cannot feel anything.
Can't you be both?
Can't you be? I don't know. That's a question for...
Okay, now you asked. You said, what is it with these people with their hyper freedom?
Yeah.
I will posit to you, it's because we don't understand how caste system this whole thing is. They're sure that you know who is dying, darkies, people in jails, that
you didn't just say
die. They, the immigrants, those people are dying. Those are the ones that, we know who's dying. So I should get my hair done. That's why it's past not caring.
You know what's really?
They're claiming a caste. They're claiming their privilege.
What's really sick is that these people are not asking for safety. They're not asking for wages. They're not asking that the president take care of the states that they live in. No, what they're asking
run
for.
Out and buy chloroquine and take
No, you're missing the whole point. What's going on here is that the death cult people want services. They want other people to perform the services that they are used to getting.
You're reading my mind, yeah? That's the servant class, the people who cut up our meat and
that's right.
Get our You're reading my mind. Oh, you're psychic.
Okay. I think it's pretty obvious. They're out there demanding haircuts, okay? They're not out there asking for safety. They're not out there asking for wages. They're not out there asking for testing. They're not out there asking that the federal government give state and local economies the boost they need to keep the police working or to keep the public schools working or to pay the teachers or to... No, they're out there asking for haircuts. They're out there asking for services. They want to feel superior to the people that cut their hair. They want to feel superior to the people who run the grocery store. They want to feel superior to the checkout girl. And not only do they want to feel superior, they want to be able to endanger those people because they won't wear a protective mask, which is protecting others. You wear a mask to protect the person over there, right next to you or across from you, from your droplets, right? You don't wear a mask to protect yourself. You wear a mask because you respect others. They cannot do that. They don't feel that.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Nearly 10,000 more Americans will die. 90,000 deaths and growing. Millions more will file for unemployment. Small businesses are dying. We're not testing enough. It's still spreading. Here's what else is coming this week. He will lie to you over and over. He will tweet instead of lead. He will blame others for his failures. Welcome to this week, and the next week, and the next, and the next, until you do something about it. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
This is a group of Republicans, I have to tell you, the Lincoln group. Yeah, pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. A lot of Republicans, of a certain stripe understand that this man is poison. He is pure poison, everybody. He is literally poisoning the democracy that is the United States. He's poisoning people's minds. If he's taking hydroxychloroquine, he's poisoning himself. He poisons himself, probably, snorting Adderall every freaking day. Who cares what happens to his brain? Who cares what happens to his heart, to his girth, to his fat, I don't care. What I care about is the poison that he's injecting into this country. You have a county court judge in Baker County, Oregon, a county court judge who just said in a ruling yesterday that churches have the right to not social distance. It's their constitutional right to not socially distance, and that the governor of Oregon is wrong. Governor Kate Brown is wrong to require social distancing, and it's their religious freedom that's in play here. No one is telling you anything about your religious ideas, ideology, or anything like that. What they're saying is you don't have the right to endanger others. So she's going to appeal. But I mean, this is the disgusting nature of American society now, where people want to be able to bring disease to their neighbors in the name of religious freedom. I've never seen America this poisoned. But the poison is running through the entire country. Victoria in Massachusetts.
Hey, Randy, I'm a huge fan, have been forever, but that's not why anybody's listening.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to just call to back up what you had said yesterday about the protesters, the little AstroTurf group that's traveling around. I had heard on GBH, which is the public radio station in Boston, their director of medical ethicists at NYU, Art Kaplan, is now caller in. And he recommends that they should be, blacklisted in emergency rooms so that they fall to the back of the line for any care, because they're putting
the protesters?
At risk.
Yeah, no, so this is my idea, okay? My idea was that they have to sign, that first of all, they have to have DNR tattooed across their forehead or their chest. And then they have to wear a cowbell around their neck so that we know they're spreaders. They also have to sign a waiver saying that they will not go to the emergency room. They will not, be a...
They won't seek any medical care.
Right.
Nothing. Right.
They won't be an impediment to treating the people who truly are infected by them and their behavior.
Right. They're scary. I mean, these people are really scary, and they're everywhere. I mean, even in stupid places like Whole Foods, where you don't expect to see them in my neighborhood, there's mothers walking around with their daughters. Nobody's wearing a mask, and you're like, what the heck is wrong with you? Because
yeah. No, I just dumped her. I dumped her because she said...
I think she said heck, but let's not take any chances.
I don't know. It was very, very close. I just, it's not worth it for me. If you curse and there's a fine, guess who pays it? I do. I'm not doing that. And you know how much it is now? $325,000. Yeah, who's got that? Nobody. But I just want to talk to you about these religious, freedom people. No one is telling you. Look, first of all, God doesn't care where or when you pray or when God doesn't care if you're standing up or kneeling. No one cares. This is just so ridiculous. It's just, they pick and they choose what they think, is in the Bible. They pick and they choose. You got a woman. This is unbelievable. A 66-year-old woman in Nebraska, swear to God, is suing all gay people. This story, New York Magazine, okay? Sylvia Driscoll, she's a 66-year-old woman from Auburn, Nebraska. She filed a federal lawsuit suing all gay people because she wants the court to decide whether or not God thinks being gay is a sin. This case has been assigned to a judge, John Gerard. I'm not kidding. She wants the court to determine whether being gay is a sin. Now, I don't see these religious freaks asking the court to decide whether eating shellfish is a crime in the Bible, okay? Or wearing clothes made of two different, threads. Or if you sold your daughter into slavery, is that allowed? Because it kind of is. You know what I don't. But they are so anyway, these religious freaks are causing clusters of COVID because they won't socially distance. They refuse to respect others, to do unto others as they would have done unto that. That's like the best way to put it. But there's a church in Georgia that reopened after the shutdown, and they had in-person services. It's called Catoosa Baptist Tabernacle, led by Pastor Justin Gazaway in Ringgold, Georgia. It's a tiny little rural place, right? He had in-person services April 26th. They won't say how many, but several family members have contracted COVID and passed it along, so now there's a cluster in this little town. They won't say how many cases, and because they're firing data scientists who could find these clusters, alert the neighbors, right? You're on your own. Carlos in Florida.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi. My question is a very simple question. If we hold a job, no matter what job you hold, even yourself, if you start to screw up on that job and you screw up enough on that job to where it even costs people lives or bodily harm, you are removed from that job. It is plain and simple. Why haven't we executed that here?
Because the President of the United States doesn't live under the same laws that we do. The President of the United States, according to the Justice Department Office of Legal Counsel, is immune to prosecution.
No, not the prosecution. I'm talking about his common sense people. I traveled around the world. Okay, what country, pretty much a lot of countries you go to, they have this thing of no contest in their faith in their leader.
Because that's not our system. We don't have a parliamentary system. We have a 25th Amendment. And the 25th Amendment says that if the president is incapacitated, that is the only way he can be removed, and you need to have his cabinet say that he's incapacitated, and 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate have to vote. That's how you remove a president, other than elections.
But
which we have coming up in about 100 days.
That doesn't make sense to any. I can.
But it is. It's the American way. It's the Constitution of the United States. It's what we live under. We don't live under a parliamentary system. We live in a representative republic. We live in a democracy. Okay.
Not even about a parliamentary system. It's about people. People are dying. I've lost several family members to this thing. Okay, and along with a host of other people, almost 100,000 people out there. And I'm pretty sure any of those families will say to you that this could have been prevented. And at the end of the day, if something is not right, we fix it. This doesn't make sense.
I understand what you're saying, but it's not the system of government that we live under. We just don't.
Wow.
Right. And so, again, we close the show with the same thought that we closed with yesterday. It matters who the president is. You can't have a congenital liar, a schemer, a fraud as president of the United States, because look at where we are. Look at where we're going. 91,570 dead people.